Hello, I'm B.H. Shepard. Welcome to iDominate Life, my daily video blog of encouragement and empowerment. Today's video is going to be a teaching, a little bit different from the normal ones, but yet and still something encouraging, empowering to help lift your life up to the highest possible levels. I don't know about you, but I've heard sayings that I've actually said to people, I see what you're saying, or I don't see it, or we don't see eye to eye. And so often in our conversations, we'll say things about seeing or not seeing and not even fully realize all that we're saying. One of the most important factors of your life is your vision. And whether or not your natural eyesight is where you would like it to be, you might wear spectacles, you may not even actually be able to physically see it all. Your natural eyesight plays a major part in your life, but I've seen a person. I once stood in a train station and I saw a man without vision. Excuse me. I saw a man without natural eyesight, and he had the cane, and he was using it to find his way in the train station. And I watched this man. I watched him get off of the train, and I watched him navigate through this crowded area full of people that had bags and hustle and bustle. On this particular morning, and I watched this man navigate all the way to the escalator and up the escalator, and then he, of course, disappeared. But I watched, and I saw that, and I realized in that moment that vision, it's not about your natural eyesight and what you can see. Vision and blindness simply is when you don't see something. It doesn't matter whether you have natural eyesight or not, but blindness, we're all blind to something. And what I knew was that man wasn't blind. We would call him blind, but he wasn't blind because with that stick in his hand, he was able to find his way. He saw the platform without having to look at it naturally, and he navigated his way through. And so I realized that even in life, we can navigate our way through some things, even if we don't fully see what's exactly happening. Even if we don't see it with our natural eyes, even though things may be a little cloudy and foggy and dark even, we can navigate our way through it. And that whole saying of what you see is what you get, the other day I was doing some reading, and I enjoy reading all kinds of different books, and I was reading the Bible, and I realized, oh, God made that up. What you see is what you get? God made that up. We'll call it WYSIWYG, and that's today's teaching topic. I just titled it WYSIWYG. What you get is what you see is what you get. And people use that for domains and website building and everything nowadays. But of course, God made that up. And I'm going to talk to you for just a few minutes about vision and why vision is so important. You'll see I have some things written on the board, and I'll address them and give you specifics on them. And the first particular part came from, I was reading in 1 John chapter 3 verse 2. And it says, "Beloved, we are now the sons of God, and it does not appear what we shall be, but we know that when he shall appear, we will be like him, for we will see him as he is." And while I was reading, and in this, while I wrote it on the board, I highlighted the see part. Because it was talking about Christ, and it says, when he shall appear, we shall be like him. We shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. And so that's hugely important that we see Christ for who he is, because as we see him for who he is, we are like him. And in my life, I grew up in church, and I've said that before, but I've often wondered why my life in particular seems so crippled. So, I grew up in church, I love God, I pray, and we sing songs, we go to church, we pray, we sing songs, we go through these things that are supposed to be the right things, but when it came down to it, there were points in my life when I was so crippled that I felt like, well, where's the power? Okay, so I go to church and we do these things, but where's the power? All these people, week in and week out go to church, but where's the power? How come the world isn't changing? How come people would rather not go to church than come? How come they don't want any parts of this? How come they don't want any parts of our God? And for me, the way I talk to myself, I wanted to know, why do I feel like a wuss? Why do I feel like I'm getting pushed around by life? I hated that thing of good guys finish last. Like, well, why does that make sense? Why is it that good guys finish last? Why is it that, good people finish last? Why is it that being a good person causes you to finish last? And so as in life, I have since, stepped away from church and have, because I needed to find out, God, I want to hear you, not just people's perspective of you or just some religious view of you. I want to know what it is that you actually say, the way that you actually are, not based upon what someone else is just handing me. And so I got to study for myself to be able to show myself approved. And here's what I saw. It says, when we see him, we will be like him. And so, for lack of a better word, the problem that I was having, the problem that you might be having is that, for one, you might not see God at all. For two, the way you see him may come from a really weak perspective. Of course, people don't want to say that, but when they look at the Christ, they know him to be the one that was crucified, and people like to proclaim and will proclaim they see him as the conquering king, but not really. We see him because if you handle, as a person, a church-going person, if you handle a person a particular way, if you get too strong with them, this has been my experience, they tell me, oh, you're not being like God. And so there's this softness about loving God that causes everything to be from this weak, wussy, just soft perspective. And for me, that just didn't work. Maybe it was, because I'm an athlete, I compete, but it just didn't work for me. And so I'm trying to figure out, well, this goes against my nature. This completely soft Jesus goes against my nature. Like, Jesus could not have been, for lack of a better word, he couldn't have been this much of a chump. And he wasn't. But somehow he gets sold as, this weak dude. And he wasn't. And so, when we see him as he really is, then our whole lives change. Because he wasn't soft. But if you're always sold soft, then you take on and see him soft, and then you're soft. And so life kicks your butt day in and day out because you have this soft perspective. And so when you see him as he is, completely as he is, then you can come at completely as he is, because here's the thing, where there is no vision, people perish. So when you don't have that vision, if you haven't seen him fully appear, see, if you just see a perspective of him, then your vision is null and void. You don't have enough vision, and guess what happens? And this is what happens to people. People perish. Because they're getting their butts kicked day in and day out by life because they have this distorted perspective of the Christ, and this distorted perspective totally screws up your vision, and so therefore you can't move into all that you're supposed to be because your vision is all messed up. You have this perception, and you can't move into anything more.